So, oh yeah, and then you said there's certain parts in terms of the heist that you connected with, right?
Oh, the heist. Um, yeah, I mean the DLC. There was a lot of Okay, well, for you, you haven't beat it yet. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go into like spoiler territory.
Ah, it's okay.
There's one specific character of which I found her story very interesting. It
Mhm.
was Yuri Watanabe,
Mhm.
because in comics Yuri actually is an ex-cop, and she becomes a vigilante called the Wraith. The Wraith, Wraith, yeah, not
Mhm.
Wrath. So she literally takes it in her own hands, and there's a lot of times where she actually goes close to crossing the line, at which Spider-Man stops her.
Mhm.
Um, and this is what the DLC was all about. It was the Magia family.
Mhm.
They're responsible, I believe, for framing her dad, and it led to his depression. And
Suicide.
I think so.
That's crazy.
But it's their fault. So she was slowly taking matters into her own hands,
Mm.
and at the end,
Sounds like Punisher.
pretty much. But she didn't kill anyone. But she
Okay.
came very close to.
Mm.
And I think at the end of the game, she actually
Matt.
quit and then just disappeared.
Really?
So I'm expecting her in the sequel to be to reappear as the Wraith.
Oh wow.
So I find it was perfect to compare her to Peter,
Mhm.
have a character like that, because you have Peter, who has every reason in the world to cross the line, but he still doesn't. He still remains noble, keeps that integrity.
Mm.
But Yuri was not able to, mind you. Like, not saying Yuri was wrong. It's just that it makes the characters very, very different. It was nice to see them interact, have a clash of morals and ideals and such. And that's what I really enjoyed about the DLC. Although not a lot of people talk about it. They talk about like, oh, Hammerhead looked weird.
Not from what I've seen.
Yeah, well,
Not from what I've seen.
yeah, okay, you'll see.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed Yuri's story, and that was for me the highlight.
Okay. Okay. I know you said like you kind of really, you actually not even kind of, you really resonate in terms of Peter and his relationship with Yuri Watanabe in terms of like the environment that you work with, right? I don't know if you can expand on that in terms of like, working with rules as opposed to like quote unquote breaking rules or bending
Yeah.
rules, but
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm very fond of. I think rules are very important because, in a general point of view, if we don't follow rules, then chaos can take place, and we do need a certain amount of order.
stop at red lights, please.
Right?
Mm.
But I find like in terms of vigilantes, they don't follow the rules. They patch up the system in their own way. And I guess it is a little
Kind of
bit
like what you do,
in a sense, yeah,
and
because
kind of what I do. But yeah, go on.
like being an attendant and tutor, I've been given a lot of liberties to solve situations as I deem fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have certain ways that I work with, let's say, teachers in to be the most effective that I can.
Mm.
Are they exactly to the letter of like the rules? Probably not, but in the end justifies the means in this type of situation. I mean, if my kids are happy, that's what counts. And if I preserve my integrity at the same time, that also is very important to me.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I very much resonate with that because I felt like, I feel like rules are. I wouldn't have made a noise. That made a noise though, but that's okay. I feel like rules are a. They should serve as a
Guideline?
guideline,
Yeah.
a guideline for how you should, um, live life or like to abide by, as opposed to seeing them as a strict set of what's the word I'm looking for? Guidebook on how to live life.
Okay, yeah.
And for me, even myself, there's certain times where like some of the relationship I've created with the youth that I work with stem from me kind of bending rules, not with necessarily breaking it. And I feel like people kind of get misconstrued in the idea of, oh, you're not following the rules, therefore you're breaking it. And it's like, no, I'm not breaking the rules. I'm bending it for this situation because if I follow to a T, I'm not going to be able to achieve the results that are necessary. I'm not going to be able to be, I guess you could say the word that we both like using is efficient. I do see efficiency as an important thing. Like, why are you going, if you can do something in one day as opposed to like a week, why not do the one that you can do, why not do it in the span of a week? And sorry, in a day. As opposed to week, like it doesn't make sense simply because you're following someone else's rules. I feel like that is important, but you can't really like go against quote unquote the rules unless you have the results, right?
Exactly.
And that's what you were saying that Peter had. Peter has results to speak for him, right?
Yeah, I mean that's why let's say the cops are a little bit more lenient with him because they know at the end of the day he is able to get the job done, so they can trust him. Which also I relate to in terms of work because of like my reputation and the things that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers and other tutors and bosses and such, they have an inherent trust in me,
Mm-hmm.
so they let me function as I deem fit. So I've earned that privilege, in a sense.
How do you keep yourself in check?
Well, I still
Like how Peter does. Like I know Peter, I guess, keeps himself in check. How do you do it every day?
I think I do it the same way he does, the same way all my heroes do.
Okay.
We don't we establish a line and we
Mhm.
just don't cross it.
Mm.
Right?
Okay.
Like for me, it's just always being a role model. I keep that perfect figure of said role model, and I don't try to go too personal, because eventually things, if you let it touch you too close, you will get
Burned.
Yeah, you'll get burned. You'll be affected.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already established like the line, and I know what to do and what not to do, so I don't cross that line. So I know.
I see.
That's why my heroes also have like a no killing rule. It's what separates them from the villains, the monsters which they fight against. There's a line that which they don't cross. They do it.
How did you create that line? How does one create that line, both in terms of comic books, anime, whatever? Like how do you create that line?
That's actually a very big question.
Well, I mean, you can talk about it in terms of yourself, because that can give people.
Yeah,
I can learn from that too.
I'll say in terms of myself, it's just a simple. You just know. It was a leap of faith. Pretty much in the sense that
you guys, you saw his facial reaction just now.
No, in the sense that like I kind of calculate what would be the best way to act in certain situations. Like I had a plan, and then after that I follow up to see, okay, well, how can it go wrong? Like for instance, like let's say I'd be driving down the road, okay, and I need to get to point B. I'm gonna go straight, but I'm not gonna waver, right? I'm gonna keep going straight.
Bobby.
Exactly, like Bobby, but in the sense that it's all in function of what my goal is, right? If I say, oh, I'm just gonna do this like that, you need rules. You need to have a concrete way.
Interesting.
You need to have steps. But that's me. I'm very, very logical, like almost flowcharty in a sense. So I know, like, okay,
detective logic,
right? I'm like, where can it go wrong? Okay, it can go wrong here. I can let it get too personal. Perfect. How do I stop that? This established, right? One lane. And then like, okay, what about this? If I go this way, this can work, and then this won't work. Another established, and I just keep establishing things, and then I find that until my line of thought, like, okay, there's already nothing that can go wrong anymore.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think I do it in a bit more of a fluid way. I just go based off. How would I word it? I think I've always kind of created my sort of like boundaries, I guess is what we would want to say. Like overall, it's just really boundaries is based off. I go based off what I can anticipate the consequences being. So it might depend from one person to another, but I would say, okay, if I'm in an environment where people are making inappropriate jokes, and I'm a man, more so than that, I'm a big black man, like there's certain things like I can't do, so I'll leave the environment because I'm like, let's say I make a joke, or let's say I say something, or let's say I'm thinking what I'm saying. Let's say I say what I'm thinking. I always think like, okay, if you say that, what will happen?
Exactly. Okay.
And I'm like, okay, well, this will happen with this person based off whatever they've done in the past, whatever, or maybe this person will like tell someone about it, or maybe it'll turn into something. So I'm like, I always kind of reevaluate this situation. I'm like, okay, this is happening. How do I handle this in this situation? I really go, I guess you can say by case in that sense, and I really just evaluate what's going on around me, and then I go based off of that. And that's really mostly the way I operate to kind of avoid certain problems, because you do have to create those boundaries with people, just like how Peter created that boundary with Otto creating that boundary, and I feel like going case by case, creating those boundaries is what's important.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree with you 100% there, because every case is different as well. If you have too many rules and too much of a generalized way of thinking, then you become, let's say, like the difference between my job and attendant, you become more like a teacher, right? And that's when you have situations that will fall through the cracks. So I think a very important thing to have is just to be adaptable.
Exactly. I feel like people are afraid of that in the sense of like they think that like, oh, if you do it differently this way, that means you're bad. It's like, no, like every case is different. If anything, that's what often I find society lacks, is the fact that like we're not willing to do things case by case. Not everything is exact. Every person, the way we've talked about, like all the kids we work with, they all think differently. No one thinks the same. Who you are is unique, whatever you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, I understand, it's hard to think that type of way, because like you always believe that that it needs to be this way. You're taught that in schools. People tell you that.
True.
So it's kind of scary to want to be your own person and to think your own way and forge your own path, because your fear of just being constantly told oh, that doesn't really work out. But if you really think about it and you really plan out what you want to do, then you should just go for it. Why not? And if you are scared that something might not work out, okay, why not? Think what cannot go right, and then try to find.
If it doesn't work, is that a bad thing?
Exactly.
Like, remember we were talking about my ego in the sense of being a teacher as opposed to being an attendant in life.
Yeah.
And you're just okay, if it is ego, is that a bad thing?
Exactly.
Just exploring that, what's so bad about failing? And I feel we were just talking about that last night in the sense of people are afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the sense of okay, so if you made a mistake,
so
what?
Good. And I honestly, which I also brought up last night, making mistakes is a good thing because it just shows you have room to grow. And what is life but just like a series of moments where you are growing, where you're learning. So if you're at a stage of your life where you're not learning or not growing, then are you really living at that point?
I actually agree with you on that, and I find that's very hard to not do for me. Yeah. I need to constantly grow.